What's up, Real Wood Climbers? It's Josh. We're back with another climbing video. In this video, I'm recapping a crazy 2024 challenge that I put on myself last year. And by the time this video comes out, I will have just wrapped that up and hoping that it came out to a success. At the time of recording this video, I'm currently sitting at 97% of the goal, and I have one session left. And I'm actually preparing for that. That session is going to be on New Year's Eve, and I'm running it live, which by the time you see this video, I've already done that. I will put a link to that live video down in the description below. Make sure you check that out after this. But what I'm doing right now is I'm preparing myself because it's been an amazing year. I've accomplished so much. I'm really proud of where I've gotten to, and that I'm really on the home stretch, that I can taste the finish of this goal. And I just wanted to mention that because we're right now at that New Year time frame where a lot of people are setting their New Year's resolutions or goals for the year. But what I do want to let you know is that you can accomplish your goals if you set them in a way that motivates you. So why do I think that this particular challenge slash goal that I set for myself at the beginning of 2024, why do I think that this worked out? It's because I set the goal to be something that I can control fully outside of like a crazy injury or something like that. I have been in complete control of my discipline when it comes to doing this goal. It's not a goal that is about a particular accomplishment. It's a goal about doing enough. So if you have no idea what my crazy challenge was for 2024, what I did is I said, I'm going to take the year 2024 and I'm going to set a goal or a challenge that revolves around that number, doing 2024 of something. And then it would just be a matter of due diligence, making sure that I break things down into smaller chunks and that I just stick with it through the whole year. So I chose to do 2024 V points, specifically Moonboard benchmark V points. So like I said, as I'm recording this portion of this video, I have not yet finished. I have one more session, but it's definitely within reach and I'm going to get it done. So if you've been following me either on Instagram or YouTube, you've probably seen this graph paper. This is the analog way I've been tracking my V points. So anytime I complete one of the benchmarks on a Moonboard, I can square in one of the boxes for how many V points that was. So for instance, the very first one I did was a V3. I'm not sure how good that's showing up on camera, but it is in pencil and graph paper and it's kind of getting wrinkled, and I do want to save this for the future. But also, I want to be able to look at it at a glance and see my progress. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to pretty this up a little bit by adding some color and making the numbers and the boxes pop off the page a little bit better. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to laminate it and put it up in the headquarters so that way I can have this memory of this year and use it as a visual representation of accomplishing a goal and give me that motivation for the next goals that I'm setting. And so I'm excited to be able to see visually this progress towards some of the harder climbs. Because yes, I could have gotten 2024 just doing like V4s and V5s and V6s, like staying in my comfort zone. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make progress at the same time. Alright, so you probably get the picture, but I'm going to continue this on both sides. So this is quite tedious. I seem to do that to myself, but it's looking pretty cool, huh? That's one side. Still got the whole other side to do. But I think it's going to look a lot better as a memento. That is 1,000 colored in. That is 977 colored in. So I have 47 points left to go. So I'm going to leave you there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump forward in time to after the new year, and we're going to recap this whole deal. All right, so it's the next day. It is New Year's Day, and last night was kind of crazy. And I hope you'll go watch, at least if you don't watch the full lives, which is many hours long. There's a lot of dead space in there. At least I hope you'll go watch the replay where I condense everything down. But let's just say it happened. I got all the points in, but it happened pretty ugly. I feel like I barely made it, but I wasn't going to be denied, and so we did it, but it definitely didn't happen the way I anticipated. Being the day after, I am absolutely just trashed. Like, I'm sore everywhere, my body, my shoulders, my back, my legs even. So I must have been doing a lot more driving with my legs and just not noticing how physically fatigued I was getting. But that really took a toll on me just to finish those last few points. And my fingers are a little bit tight and sore, but they're doing okay. But like, just overall, I'm the sorest I've ever been in a long time. So to recap, like, my original plan was that I was going to finish off on some really hard climbs, some 7s, 8s, and 9s. And what ended up happening is I just ended up picking some V7s, and even when I was trying V8s that were not like my style, and I just had so many attempts that did not net me points, and so it took a lot of energy out of me. I came actually kind of close on the V9 that I wanted to try, but I think it was just a little bit too late. Like, my body was just a little bit too gone. So I do think I'll be able to get that shortly. That being said, I had to scrap kind of that plan and just get down and dirty and just find something that I could complete. So I ended up finishing with 2 6s and a 5 to get my last few points in. And even those felt really, really hard. It feels so good to have this thing filled in. I did decide to laminate it because I wanted to preserve it, but in doing so, trying to preserve it, I almost like completely wrecked it. So you can kind of see it's all damaged here, and that's because the laminating machine tried to eat it. Oh no! Stupid laminator! Ate my paper! It gobbled up my paper. But luckily, it like just wrinkled it. It didn't totally destroy it. It kind of worked. Kind of flattened it. But I kind of saved it. It's just wrinkly. But mainly I want to be able to display this in the headquarters in the garage anyways, so it doesn't have to be like super pristine. And I'll try and flatten it out even further. But so I'm going to jump into the computer here and share a little bit of data with you on this whole challenge, and then we'll come back and do a recap. All right, so I did want to share with you some of the stats and kind of go through how this came out. So to break it down by the different grades and how many of each of the grades I ended up doing, it did end up being kind of a decent sized bell curve. So I did do quite a few in the V3 and V4 range. So starting off, there are only V3s on the 2017 and 2019 boards. My 2016 and the 2024 set do not have V3s, so that's why that number is a little bit lower. And I would typically use those as warm-ups. There's fewer of them overall, and so I actually ended up running out of them on all the boards. So I didn't have any really V3s that were unrepeated that I could do. So they were pretty much used as warm-ups in my sessions. Then there's quite a jump in the number of V4s that I did, and that's because all of the 2016 lowest entry ones are considered V4s. All the boards have them. And since Moon is set up from England and over in Europe where they use the font grade for boulders, some of the boards actually have both 6B and 6B plus that are considered V4s. So there's just a lot of them to pick from. And again, for the vast majority of these are done as like warm-ups. There were a few that gave me a hard time, and I really kind of questioned whether they were actually V4s. And then again, in the V5 range, I did quite a few of them. I felt like for the most part, V5 is like a solid range that I can flash almost all the time. With it, again, the few exceptions of those ones that just were really kind of tricky, or if I didn't wear the beta and things like that. But with good beta and being fresh and everything like that, I felt that most V5s were flashable by me. And so I ended up doing a lot of those in kind of the middle of my training sessions. And just like V4s, there are 2 French grades in V5, 6C and the 6C plus, both considered V5. So there's just a lot more to pick from in that number for the V grade. Moving on to V6. V6 was kind of like a 50-50 for some of the sets. If they were in my style, I could feel like I could flash them. And yet there were still some V6s that were quite challenging and took me multiple tries. I will remind you of a few extra like stipulations I put on my challenge. Number one is no repeat climbs within the 2024 year. So I didn't do any of these multiple times. And then the second stipulation was that I limited myself to 3 attempts in that session, and then I moved on. So occasionally I would come to some 6s and beyond where I would need more than 3 attempts. And so then I had to come back to them on different times. So in quite a few of these sessions, the concept of energy conservation came up, in that if I would take 3 attempts on something and not get points for it, it ended up taking a lot of energy and lowering my chances later on in that session for acquiring more points. So I had to kind of be careful, and that's why I limited myself to 3 attempts. V7 was a cool grade for me. I had never done a V7 benchmark before this challenge, and I ended up getting quite a few of them, and I ended up feeling pretty solid on some of them. So I feel like within this challenge, I did ratchet up my grade where I could legitimately do quite a few V7s within those 3 attempts. And so I bet I could do quite a few of the other V7s if I chose to project them a little bit more. So I feel like I moved my kind of core grade of Moonboard, which is not necessarily reflective of other gyms. It's not necessarily reflective of outdoor climbing, but it's kind of in its own ecosystem. I feel like I moved my standard from the V5, V6, where I was pretty solid there, to V7. And that was pretty exciting. And then I even was able to kind of cherry pick and find some V8s that really fit my style that were good for me. Actually, one of the V8s was pretty much out of my style, and I was still able to do it. So I'm really proud of myself for kind of ratcheting there. And again, I feel like V8 is definitely in the realm of possibility, just not always in the 3 attempts. What I did find in the Moonboard, kind of the jump from V6 through 7s and into 8s, is that it becomes less specific on the grip with your hands and more body tension, more body power, a lot more jumpy, a lot more legs needing to be used, maybe even more campus power because your legs are off and you need to be able to just pull with your arms. I feel like we're getting into that realm where it's going to be about campus power, which is not necessarily my favorite. I don't want all of the hard climbs to just be hard because of campusing with no feet. My goal was to be able to do my very first 9, and I feel like I'm definitely capable of it. The one that I chose was definitely within my style, and I was just a little bit too sapped. I was making really good goes on it and could have gotten lucky on one of them where if I would have been maybe like a half inch higher, I would have been able to latch the kind of key crux hold, and then I feel like the finish would have been no big deal. So I feel like V9, I'm on the cusp of breaking through into that, and I just need to be fresh and maybe even treat it as more of like a project level for me. So that being said, this is how the breakdown was of number of V points that were acquired through each of these grades, and it got me to my grand total of 2024. All right, so let's talk about the breakdown on how I accomplished this, which boards I used. So primarily I was able to utilize the 2016 board, but that's because it's my home wall, and I'm really thankful that I have a home wall, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm excited to do some other fun things with my Moonboard and my home wall in the years to come. So keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. But yeah, 2016, I ended up doing 21 sessions on that board, and I acquired by far the most points with 976 V points on the 2016 setup. And that averaged 46 and a half-ish V points per session on the 2016 board, which is pretty cool. The reason why I think the average per session is pretty good number there is because I had determined that if I did stick with my plan and I was consistent, I did 1 session per week or so, I would need about 39 to 40 V points. So to be above average per session was pretty good. Next most frequently was the 2017 board. That board is set up at Jack's house. It is his indoor wall, and it is at the fixed 40 degrees angle. This setup did not have the wood holds, and so there were probably some problems that used wood holds that I did not have access to, but I do feel like this 2017 board climbs quite a bit differently. It has the red holds in there, and the red holds tend to be a bit juggier. Some of them are like slopey balls, and some of them are more kind of shallow, pinchy feels, like slopey edges. And so there are some tricky things on the 2017 board. I know a lot of people kind of give the red holds a hard time, but I think most of them are pretty good. There are some ones that are kind of funky, but for the most part, the reds are pretty nice. I ended up doing 11 sessions there, getting 497 V points and averaging 45 points per session on the 2017. And then the next most frequent was the 2019 board, but at 25 degrees. So Jack's outdoor wall is adjustable. It's got the 2019 setup on it. And I thought that it was interesting moving it into 25 degrees, and it definitely changes the feel of it. First off, the distance feels longer going up. Obviously, it's not as steep, so maybe not as finger intensive, and you can use smaller holds. The reaches felt way farther because it feels like the feet are farther away from the hands when you're not at as steep of an angle. Kind of think of like more of an obtuse triangle, and the hypotenuse of that triangle is going to be bigger than a more closer to acute angle triangle. Then the hypotenuse of that triangle is smaller. So the moves just felt a lot reachier, and they were definitely a different style. And I actually kind of liked it. It was kind of nice some days to just not be on a powerful steep board and to try just a little bit different feel, try a little bit more big reaches and smaller holds and things like that. So I really did appreciate having access to the 25 degree and 2019 board. I did 6 sessions on that setup for a total of 290 points and averaging 48 points per session. And then after that, the next most frequent was the same board but at 40 degrees, and we did 4 sessions on that for 207 V points and averaging 51.75. I do kind of like the 2019 setup. It's not my favorite out of all of them, and I'll just say that. And I know I might catch some guff for this, but I'm not the biggest fan of the wood holds. Some of the smaller crimpy ones feel really nice, but like the bigger ones, I'm not a fan of how the plywood, the layers kind of incorporate into it. And the wood grain is something interesting to note as well, that when you're using them as footholds after you've passed them with your hands, there's one direction of the wood grain that is very grippy. And so like if you're going that direction with your foot will stay, but then there's the other direction that is very slippery and your foot will come off. So it's just this inconsistency. I guess it's kind of like real rock climbing though, so where you have to be concerned with texture and directionality and things like that. But I'm just not the biggest fan of those wood holds. And then I did get a chance to check out the 2024 setup at 2 different gyms. The setup is really nice. I'm a really big fan of the blue holds. The shapes of the blue holds are more unique than some of the other setups. There's more pockets, and there's more kind of slopey feels. And so I am really looking forward to getting the blue holds myself. But I really did like being able to kind of test that setup out at those gyms. I did only do 2 sessions there. And both of the sessions, again, being at a gym, I feel like they were kind of shrunk down in time, just feeling rushed. And I did them at the end of sessions where I was doing the regular boulder sets in those gyms as well. So I don't feel like I've really experienced 2024 that much, but I'm really looking forward to, again, trying it with those blue holds. Just 54 points in those 2 sessions and averaging 27 points per session. So in my 44 total sessions, I got all my points, and I averaged 46 points per session, which is, again, above what I anticipated I needed. So I'm going to jump out of here and let's do that recap. So overall, I am really, really proud of myself for sticking with this. I set this goal and it was kind of a lofty goal, but it was also believable. It was a numbers-based goal with 2024 of something. And I really think that having it be like a numbers-based goal like that, it helped the way that my analytical brain works to conceptualize how this is possible. And so I was able to break down that number of points by how many I needed per week slash per session. And early on, I was able to stay pretty close to on pace, which was really good. And then kind of hit a wall with just travel and didn't get enough sessions in over like a month and a half time frame in the summer. And that put me quite a bit behind. So coming into like late August and September, I really was playing catch up. But I was also trying to work on some outdoor projects and get outdoors a little bit more as well. But I was able to pick up the pace and be able to pick up some points that I had missed over the summer. But I still had a long ways to go. And then just when I started to get like really close, where it felt like I could really just make a sprint to get done, maybe even before Christmas in December, I started hitting the challenge of I was running out of the low-hanging fruit. So I was pretty much completely out of V3s and V4s on all three of the boards that I had access to regularly, and most of the V5s as well. And so those that I had left were benchmarks that had fewer numbers of repeats as well. So they tended to be on the harder end, and maybe even I would say they were a bit sandbagged and could have been at higher grades, but that's besides the point. Some of my sessions were just hard fought just to get a few points. So I ended up having to have some weeks where I did 2 moonboard sessions instead of 1, just to get back and stay in the pace. And I did account for the fact that after Christmas, I would have basically a full week to do some sessions. So I did get a session in while I was in Minnesota visiting family on a 2024 board, which was nice because there's a lot more problems that I've never tried before on that. And then I put myself in striking distance for this New Year's Eve thing. Probably could have been closer. I probably should have maybe squeezed in one more mini session or done a few more points on that 2024 board, but it is what it is. And I had 47 points left going into the last session. And again, they were pretty much all hard fought for points. Even the V5s took multiple attempts. That being said, I am so glad that I did this challenge. I'm so thankful for so many of you that supported me through my posts on Instagram or the things that I did here on YouTube. And I definitely could not have done it without that encouragement. I definitely could not have done it without my best climbing friend, Jack, who has been instrumental in my climbing development as well. He's a great encourager, a great safe climbing partner that I trust. And he also has provided 3 variations of moonboards that I had access to. So huge shout out to Jack. You've met him on some of these other videos. So that being said, I am a big advocate for this type of challenge. Like, I wouldn't even probably classify it as a goal. I would say it's more of a challenge. My goal is something bigger and more intrinsic in climbing. And I'm actually going to be sharing that here early in the new year. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe clip the chains on that subscribe button so that way you can make sure to see those when they come out. So that being said, I do plan on having a goal like this for 2025. But it's going to be different. It's not going to be based on moonboard stuff, although I will continue to be moonboarding and putting out moonboard content. And I also have to take the fact that I'm having knee surgery at the end of this month into consideration. So the recovery from that is going to kind of stop me from having a full year of climbing. So my climbing goal / challenge for 2025 has to be something that is believable for me within about 6 months, where I feel like I'll be able to get back out and climbing, even if I'm climbing easier things early on, right after my recovery. But what I would recommend for you is I would recommend taking some form of challenge that you are in complete control of. So what I mean by that is, don't set a goal or a challenge that says, I want to climb a 5 dot whatever. I want to climb a V whatever number. I think those types of things are like goals that you should be shooting for, finish lines that you should be going for. But for a challenge for the 2025 year, I would recommend setting something that you are in complete control of, something that is discipline based. You just got to do enough of it, and that is so believable that if you break it down into smaller chunks, you 100% know that it can happen. But if you slack off and you delay, then it won't happen. So it has to be like stretching you enough that you have to be diligent to get it to happen. I think there's so much value in that, and I think that not only will you get to be a stronger climber and a better person, but I also 100% believe that you will achieve that thing, and it will fuel you on, it will bolster you up for the next thing. I am a big proponent of setting small, believable goals. So that is my challenge for you. Figure out something that stretches you for 2025, but that can be broken down and that can be motivating to you, and go after it. And if you're willing to, share that thing in the comments below, and I personally will be encouraging to you on that goal. So thank you so much for all of your support and all of you viewers that watch my videos in 2024 and earlier. I'm very excited about what's coming in 2025, and I hope that you'll continue to join me and maybe even share this out with your climber friends, so that way we can continue to build this real world climbers community. You can do that by clipping the chains on the subscribe button. I'll see you real soon.